Greetings and bienvenue, MITZU. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Sharing is caring. Post your experience with the paranormal.
In August 2014, I did a thing and nothing happened. Then a couple days later, I was meditating and felt something weird. Mentally, I said, "Is something there? What's your name?" Then suddenly my body started moving on its own. I picked up a notebook and the thing moving me wrote out its name. Well, the thing I came into contact with stuck around for a week inside me. Sometimes it left, and we had a great time just being best buddies. The sensation of it possessing me was nothing I've ever felt before. It was amazing, and at times it's the only thing I would ever say is truly euphoric. Then something bad happened, and we had a falling out. I'm not going to talk about that part. It left temporarily, and I was sent to a mental hospital. I only spent a week there either because they're super incompetent or I'm just a good liar or actor. I should have been in there for months. But while I was there, it kept torturing me, and all of reality was completely destroyed. Of course, I was diagnosed schizophrenic, so I come back home and I'm constantly on edge, feeling like shit from the meds and thinking that I'll have to deal with this all my life. Suddenly the thing comes back, it was gone just before I got home, and starts apologizing and shit. At this point, I'm just like, screw it. Whatever happens, happens. So it stays around with me, but the feeling is different, like it pities me or something. And this goes on for a couple months. I've been taking my meds, changed them, fucking nothing but feeling like a 90-year-old with cerebral palsy. I stopped taking my meds, and like 4 or 5 months later, this thing is still around. However, it feels like it's bored with me. Since I stopped the meds, my mood improved vastly, and I stopped having constant pain literally everywhere on my body. At about 7 to 8 months since I came into contact with the thing, took antipsychotics and then stopped, it was still there. But it talked to me less, felt like it didn't want to be there, but it had to, like it just needed to watch over me even at a distance. Then one day it was just gone. I really missed it. Few weeks went by and I tried something. It sort of came back briefly. I don't actually remember what was said. I don't even remember if I said goodbye. And now I'm too much of a coward to try and contact it again. I still wonder if it was real. The meds did literally nothing, and it left on its own. And since then I haven't felt or heard anything inside of me that isn't me. The one thing that gets me is my dog died after it left, and that night while I was sleeping, I woke up and felt this golden euphoric feeling in the pit of my chest that was the exact same thing it used to do. And I don't know if it was trying to comfort me, because even feeling that I was still depressed, it was a weird mix of emotions, or if I was just caught in some sort of hard dream.
This happened about a month ago. I came to visit my aunt and uncle who had previously warned me of a ghost in the house. On Christmas Day, a brush duster thing that was attached to a dustpan flung off and flew across the kitchen floor, leaving the dustpan still standing. Needless to say, I believe in ghosts now. Also, cabinets in the bathroom opening and closing while no one is in there. I also get very uncomfortable, like someone is in the room staring at me when I wake up in the middle of night. Only spooky things that has happened to me.
Be me. Young child around 2 or 4 years old. Swing on a play set in the backyard. Swing on it every nice day. Every time I reach the peak on the forward swing, someone tickles my feet. Grandma thinks it was her father, my great-grandfather. Come to think of it, I've got quite a few encounters with spirits. None bad in any way, though. If anyone wants, I can share, though it may not be terribly exciting since there's no blood or anything. Okay, be about a year ago. I own a dog, a border collie, live in the suburbs. In the basement, when you go down the stairs, there's a cutout in the wall, forms sort of a ledge overlooking the basement. Whenever someone wants to call someone up from the basement, dinner, etc., they stand at the cutout and call you. Enough with context setting. Be me, sitting and playing Far Cry 4 on PS4. Dog laying at my feet. I'm on the couch. Dog's ears suddenly perk up. She gets up and moves to the middle of the room, sits in the middle of the room perfectly calm and in direct view of the cutout. She keeps a lock on with someone moving down the stairs. There's no one there. My dog is watching ghosts walk down the basement stairs. This progressed even more until this happened 4 months ago. Dog has done the stairs look thing about 30 times now. One day it happens again. The family knows about it since I've recorded it. My family is spiritual, Christian. This time my dog does it, but when the spirit gets to the bottom of the stairs. She trots over to the bottom of the stairs and sits there looking up at someone. Her ears are down and her tail is wagging, like someone is petting her on the head. After this, my mother and grandma both said it was my great-grandfather. Okay, this is one of a few like this. Walk to school. The walk is fairly long, 30 minutes, and I take a route through some quiet streets. I listen to a playlist of march music I made. A good chunk of it is German. Don't judge me. Enough backstory. Walking to the school one morning last spring, listening to Ein Heller und ein Batzen. My earbuds are falling out, so I take them out of my ears to set them again. I've hit stop on my phone before I took out the buds, so no more audio's coming out. Hear humming behind me and what sounds like dress shoes smacking the pavement. Humming is to the tune of Ein Heller und ein Batzen. What the hell? Turn around. No one's there, of course. Look around at the houses. Window drapes are drawn, lights off, etc. Okay, what is going on? Chalk it up to me being stupid. Put earbuds back in and play the next song. Our Gunnar Wald lied. Out of curiosity, I pull my buds out again and stop the track. Humming behind me to the tune of Our Gunnar Wald lied and the dress shoes smacking sound. I say screw it and book it to school. At this time, I learn more about my great-grandfather. Turns out he was in the army of a very prominent European nation that had a dictator with a toothbrush mustache. He served on the Eastern Front in World War II. Decide not to tell anyone about my experiences with the dress shoes and humming, as they'd call me schizo. I eventually came to the realization that it's not dress shoes. They're marching boots. Fast forward to June of last year. Stayed out late to work on a summative project with friends, walking home after dark. I forgot earbuds at home, so I have no music. As I walk down the dead quiet streets, I half expect something spooky to jump out and kill me. Start whistling my favorite march to myself. After about 20 seconds of that, someone else picks up the tune. Then 4 more take it up in rapid succession. Holy shit, what the actual hell? There's 5 people behind me whistling to the song I'm whistling to. It's very faint, like the humming was, but you can definitely hear it. I pick up the pace. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I thought I was going insane. As soon as I start speed walking, the smacking starts again. Actually sounds like 5 pairs of boots hitting the pavement in step with the tune. I've since stopped whistling, and now whatever is behind me is doing it on its own. My vision is tunneling as I just want to get out of there. Frightened to all heck, I don't watch where I'm stepping and I trip on a chipped part of the sidewalk. Fall face first. Brace my fall with my hands, but it still hurts when I hit the concrete. Marching and whistling stops. A man across the street steps out of his car in the driveway holding a cigarette. "Hey, bud, are you okay?" "I'm okay," I called after him. He nods and gets back in his car. He's probably forbidden to smoke in the house. I get up and palm my hands together. They got scraped as I went down. Look behind me. No one there, obviously. Adrenaline wore off with my fall. Begin to think about it. Run the checklist through my head. Does this or these things want to harm me? No. Have I ever really been given reason to think they'd harm me? No, what are they? I couldn't answer the last one exactly. I knew they were spirits or ghosts, powerful enough to create sounds, but not powerful enough to create a visible form. Or maybe they are and they choose not to. I push it out of my head and walk the rest of the way home, taking extra care not to whistle. Now we fast forward to the middle of July last year, at a family gathering. My family is German, in case you didn't get that from the first part of this story. Oma is head of the family. She's not like full-on head, setting rules for the whole 30-plus person family to follow. She's just the oldest, so everyone looks at her as the head, you know? Eventually, one day I will probably have this head position as I am her direct grandson. For some reason, the majority of the family besides my mother, Oma, Tante, and Opa, believe we are rednecks. This is because Oma's brothers moved out to a small town in Ontario. Once I asked my mom about it. She said it was just a big joke that we all play. I could not for the life of me grasp it since I grew up in the city. I asked Oma about it. I don't know what the hell they were thinking raising their children like that. The Anon family are not rednecks. She was referring to her brothers and their parenting. Anyways. The gathering is winding down. Getting late, everyone is outside having beers, sitting in the kitchen watching TV on a small Panasonic with Oma. Out of the blue, I ask her, "Did you or your dad ever hear marching out of nowhere?" Awkward silence as she stares at me. Her brow furrows as if she's either trying to figure out my motive or wondering if she has heard it. Finally, she speaks. "Why, have you heard it too?" I am bewildered. "Yes, I have. About 5 times now." "When did it start?" "Right after March break here with you. During this March break, I found out that my great-grandfather was a soldier." "Yes, sounds like it's right. Starts right after you open your eyes." She turns off the TV. "When my dad was still alive, he had friends over from the war. This was in a small town in the 60s in Canada, where you could get away with being a veteran of an enemy army. They would talk about hearing them. I ask who. She can't tell me. She doesn't remember the conversation. Mind you, this would have been over 50 years ago. They would go up to the bedroom, the 3 of them, and play music. What music, I asked. Obviously from the war. They came down after a few hours and talked about meeting again to listen to the squad. I am puzzled by this. She says that soon after she heard the music for the first time, she would hear footsteps around the house and faint humming. Oma told me her dad would say, "There they are again." She tells me that over the years, the original 3 that visited one passed away. He died of complications from an earlier wound in his lung from the war. A week after the funeral, there were 2 pairs of footsteps around the house and the humming was slightly louder. Oma's dad at the time. "Looks like they've not wasted any time getting reacquainted. Everyone in the house could hear these sounds. Great Opa, Great Oma, Oma, and her brothers all heard them. They would only start when Great Opa played his records or when the war friends were over. A few years after that, the last 2 war friends had passed. Oma had moved out by now and was living by herself, pregnant with my mom. When she visited her parents once, the marching started right when she entered the house and followed her wherever she went inside, be it the kitchen or living room. Great Opa says, 'You know they are quite fond of your baby.'" "Who?" asked my Oma. "You know, the boys, since Anon and Anon had passed, they haven't left me alone. Must be their old loyalty still coming through." Oma says she remembered that incident in particular very clearly, as there was no doubt there were spirits in the house. 4 pairs of boots hitting the carpet and hardwood throughout the place. 2 decades have passed. Great Opa passes away. I am not even a glitter in my mom's eye, who is 20-something years old at this point. After the funeral, my Oma packs up all of his belongings and stores them away. Many things get taken by her brothers, medals, records, letters, etc. All war artifacts that form such a complete picture of a man when together that it would be museum quality. By the way, I've actually seen these medals and vinyls myself. Great Opa was a very decorated man anyways. Marching stops, Mom and her sister never hear it. In fact, no one hears it again. Oma stops her story here. "I thought that it was just something that my dad had when he was alive. I thought that if the sounds got louder each time one of the men passed, my dad would join them and I would still be connected." I ask her if she can figure out who the men were. "Well, now that I've retold the whole thing, it seems pretty obvious that the boots were the men under his command. This was the first time I heard that my Great Opa had anyone under his command. Turns out he was a sergeant and led a small squad of 5 men, including himself. One of those 4 under him died in the war. Needless to say, I am extremely spooked and weirded out by the whole thing. Thankfully, Mom says it's time to go and we leave. Go home and it is late. Have forgotten about the story for the most part. Hit the hay and catch some sleep. I got a very weird dream that night. I'm in front of an old house in the middle of the woods. Looks to be a good 150 years old. It's big. White outer walls, massive barn door attached to the side of it. Go in through the front door. It's big and it's old. The house is outfitted with a fireplace, stove, etc. Old wood furniture. Go in through the kitchen, see closed door at the side of the kitchen, can see light flickering under the door. Flames? I woke up. Think nothing of it. Throughout the day I felt this strange urge to go to Germany. Like almost as if I don't go, I'll die. Very creeped out by this. The next night the dream happens again, and then the next night and the next. Until finally I'm freaked out that I've had the same dream 4 days in a row, almost afraid to go to sleep. Finally will myself to go to sleep, afraid I'll get the same dream for the 5th time. I move through the house just like the last 4 times, until finally I reach the door on the side of the kitchen. Flames flickering under it. This time something different. The dream is not ending here. My head moves to look right next to the door. Metal plaque on the wall. I take a closer look at it. The plaque reads, "It's there." The dream ends. At this point, I'm ready to say that I'm going nuts. My mom sees me distressed and tired out. What's wrong? I ask her if she has ever seen a house like the one in my dreams. Describe it in detail to her. I left out the plaque, her only reply. "I don't know. Ask your Oma. Call Oma. Ask her about the house." She stops me as soon as I say barn door. That was my parents' old house in Germany. It's in the Black Forest. It's still in the family. Say thanks and hang up. I'm going off the wall. I'm having dreams of an old family house I've never seen or heard of before. Decide that the "It's there" plaque is important. Contact cousins that live in the house in Germany. Talk to them too up to about 2 weeks ago. Become friends. I asked them about the layout of the house back at the beginning of January. They tell me that next to the kitchen is the den. I ask if there's a fireplace in there. They say random question, but yes, haven't responded to them since. And that's the end of the story.
I have 2. Be about 8 or 9. Every single night, 2 black figures would peer into my room. The figures would hold the frame of the door and lean over. One day I say enough is enough. I stand up to go check it out, and they duck back into the hallway. Behind the door frame, I go into the hallway, and nothing. I guess it was shadow people? They look extremely small, like kids, I suppose. Second story, me, same age. Some nights, rather than the 2 children, I would see a large figure, larger than the door, standing just outside. This scared me, because the other ones I felt like I could write off as my imagination. Figure was so tall, I could only see its body, maybe taller than the ceiling would allow, extremely wide too. I'd compare it to the silhouette on the Babadook poster. Scared the shit out of me. Duck under covers, and when I come up, it's gone. Happened about 3 or 4 times. Since then, I've moved, and I don't see that shit anymore.
I saw something just like that when I was about 6. Every other night, I'd see whole clumps of little shadows leaning through the doorway and staring at me. They looked like the Furby collection my sister had in the basement had decided to go for a walk. I never bothered to get out of bed and investigate because I was convinced it was all an elaborate prank my cousin Tommy was playing on me. In hindsight, there were a couple holes in my logic, like the fact that there were way too many Furbies lining the doorway to be propped up by human hands. Not only that, my cousin was a half-hour's drive away living in the suburbs of Chicago at the time. The thought of that old house gives me the creeps. I couldn't give you an exact date, but sometime before the Furbies started peeping on me. I was slowly drifting to sleep one night when suddenly this long, green thing that looked like a human-sized stick of broccoli with a face jumped up from the floor in front of my bed and started speaking gibberish to me. Its voice had this distinct, metally twang effect to it, and it only managed to speak for a half-second before I was screaming bloody murder at the top of my lungs. My 45-year-old, 270-pound dad ran into my room stark naked, flipped the light switch on with one hand, and was holding a Glock with the other. Between the broccoli monster and my dad, I'm not sure which sight was more traumatizing to 6-year-old me. Now that I think about it, there was all sorts of weird shit going on around that old house, especially in the basement. I hated that place, but that was where my parents set up all of the toys my sister and I had, so I spent a lot of time there. Whenever I was down there by myself, I'd always have the feeling someone was watching me. Every now and then, I'd even hear a voice that sounded just like my mother's voice calling my name. And if I went upstairs to see what she wanted, my mother would, 90% of the time, tell me that she never called my name. What's more, I would always hear weird thumps coming from whichever half of the basement I wasn't in. Not very spooky, but it added to the crushing atmosphere of the place. And I'd see things around the property too. Instant flashes of someone or something running out of the corner of my eye before disappearing. Or I'd see a glitch in the matrix. Like the time I was looking out a window into my backyard and saw a long line of raccoons climb out of our garbage can, turn to me and wave hello, and then scurry behind the garage. And like a GIF file, the raccoons would go through the same exact frames of motion over and over and over until I looked away. This was back in 2000, and I wouldn't even find out what the internet was until my classmates started talking about some new website called YouTube years later. Another time, I was roughhousing with my dad and sister, and my dad decided it would be a fun prank if he threw me on the couch and smothered me between the couch cushions until I cried. He was a real asshole back then. Well, I was squished between the cushions, it's pitch black, and then I'm suddenly staring face to face with these two dogs that looked like the creepy animatronics that you would find in Chuck E. Cheese's. And once again, I'm screaming bloody murder at the top of my lungs because I have no idea why my dad is trying to feed me to these uncanny ghost dogs. Nothing else springs to mind, but my family has a lot of other paranormal experiences. 2 dubs in a row. Spooky. My mother had a lot of experiences with ghosts that she would talk about whenever we'd have a family gathering. Like when she was a little girl playing hide and seek with her siblings and cousins at their grandpa's house. Grandpa was a Russian Cossack, but that's not important to the story. My mom ran into the basement to hide behind the firewood pile, and as she's hiding there, she watches as a blue man she had never seen before walks down the basement stairs, looks right through her, and then moves towards the firewood pile without moving. She sat perfectly still until the blue man walked into a wall and disappeared, and then she ran back upstairs screaming and crying about the ghost in the basement. Years later, as a teenager, she and her cousins decided to play with a Ouija board. They found a ghost and asked it to prove to them that it was real. My mom's cousin starts laughing, and then all the other girls start laughing until they realize that her cousin wasn't laughing at all, but crying because her fingers were twisting like pretzels. They threw the Ouija board away after that.
Be me, 4 years ago, just browsing some boards in my house. Live in a semi-rural area by the sea, a fishing village of sorts. It's December or January, so knee-high snow everywhere. About 11 in the evening, want to smoke, so head outside. Decide that I want to piss, so go to the bush. It's dark as hell, but I can see the neighbor's fence just right in front of me, about 5 or so meters away. Piss. Suddenly, a huge figure of what looks like a shadow of a humanoid walks beside the neighbor's fence on my side. Can see that thing for 2 seconds, then it disappears. Don't think too much about it, but instinctively walk back inside without any fear or uneasiness. Realize I didn't hear nothing. If that was a man, I should have heard it moving through knee-deep snow. Oh, wait, what did I see? .png. Check the fence for tracks next morning. Nothing in the snow. What did I see?
Not my experiences, but my mother's. She's a retired nurse that worked in the OR, and she would always tell stories how the operating room was haunted, especially in the graveyard shifts. She would say that a lot of her co-workers would see spooky shit like a woman in white, but with no visible legs. I'll tell a couple of those stories she told me. This was in Puerto Rico. One day a tropical storm was passing the island. There's a blackout during the graveyard shift. Workers in the OR suddenly see a woman in white floating around. She has no legs. Workers shit bricks. Graveyard shifts get boring really fast. Sometimes my mom and others would fool with the PA system by turning it on and eavesdrop on any conversation going on. One day her friends see the thing turns on by itself. They hear a lot of people in the lobby, like if it was during the day. They check the lobby. No one is there. My mom was talking with her friend. All of a sudden, her friend changes composure. She's scared shitless. I am leaving. Why? There's an old man with a hat behind you. You're shitting me. Mom looks behind her. No one there. Friend left. Mom tells me that my friend would see shit like that all the time, like in the windows and lobbies. During the graveyard shift, intern sees a lady walking around, goes to her to tell her the operating room is off limits, loses her in a corridor. He goes the other way around to intercept her. He finds her. She's blood-drenched and with a horrifying face. Intern bolts it, I believe. They have special rooms for workers to sleep during the shift. Friend of my mother is just sleeping. Sees door opens, there's a shadowy figure at the door. The thing is scanning the room, as if looking for something. Friend just freezes so as to not make the thing notice her. Thing leaves. Friend stays awake through the whole shift. Mom and 2 of her co-workers were finishing up a surgery. Co-workers would take the patient to his room on the other floor. Mom would finish up the cleaning. While she was finishing, she heard someone whistling. "Back so soon, eh?" she shouted. No answer. She went outside the room and saw nobody. There was no one in the operating room, just silence. She power walks to the elevator where at that moment her co-workers came up. Mom and co were talking in the reception. Suddenly something white passes them by very quickly. She said she thought she saw wings of some kind. One night her friend was organizing stuff in the operating room. All of a sudden she hears something like a pig being murdered. Janitor was also there, gets very spooked and tells her he's leaving. Friend continues her work. She hears it again. This time she sees the silhouette of something demonic. She feels something grabs her and takes her out of the room. She's a religious person and believes God or an angel got her out of there. She and a Catholic co-worker were in the workers' bedrooms praying for the rest of the night. Eventually they called a priest to exorcise the operating room and the activity stopped. I know there were other stories, but those are the stories my mother remembers. Hope you enjoyed them.
My mom has some weird stuff that's happened to her. She's told me these stories multiple times and they don't change, even if I go years between asking her about them. 80s, Mom flips houses for a living. One house, nearly as big as a mansion. Living there while fixing it up with a few roommates. Really grand staircases between the 3 or so floors of the house. They room on the second. Mom is on the first floor and can see the staircase to the second floor from where she is. One roommate is on the second floor, apparently saw this as well. At nighttime, everything is going normally until my mom starts feeling uneasy suddenly. She's sensitive to these things due to experiencing so many. Look at the staircase. An orb, but more like a flickering flame, slowly moving upstairs. Mom is frozen, staring. Roommate appears on landing as thing travels upstairs, sees it and gets spooked, running back into the floor proper. Thing goes into the floor after her and seemingly vanishes. Another one, she would hear a cocktail party going on through the fireplace from the basement, but going down there, there'd be nothing. She said that it was clearly audible. You could hear glasses clinking together and the low murmur of conversation.
This one is recent. Be me. I work in the kitchen in a coffee house along with 3 guys, about a week ago. Everyone minding their own business, colleagues folding croissant dough, doing relatively quiet stuff. Out of nowhere, a jar full of forks and spoons crashes to the floor from a table. Fucking racket. We laugh, kinda nervous, kinda incredulous. Days after that, have the afternoon shift alone, sitting at a table wrapping baguettes. All is silent, not much work to do. A bunch of metallic bowls and a box of baking sheets fall from a shelf, where they always stand really firmly as heavy as they are. Get startled and a little puzzled at the inexplicability of it. Gather everything and put it back, trying to find a physical explanation. Doesn't seem to be any. And the last weird event to happen. 3 days ago, the kitchen is full, again everyone at their own shit, but facing away from the stove. Pass behind one of my co-workers and in front of the stove to get something. Everything is normal. Return to the working area. From the corner of my eye, I notice something bright. The burner is on. What the actual fuck.zip? Guys, did one of you turn the stove on? Everyone faces the goddamn thing. Nobody turned it on. We chuckle nervously again. They blame me, say I turned it on while passing, but I really didn't have any contact with the bloody knobs of anything, so I could do it.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.